we have a question from one of our regular hosts, Charlie B. Williams III, and he's asking, what's your process? What do you use to create your art? How long does it normally take? Thank you for the question, Charles.
Thanks, Charles. Okay, so I'll start with like what I use, all the programs I use and stuff. So I used to work at Titmouse Inc., and it's an animation studio. They have one in New York, they have one in LA, and they also have one in Vancouver. And I was located at the New York base for 4 years before I'd started YouTube. And I was a production coordinator there. So I kind of just took their way of making cartoons and started doing what they do because I felt it was the best method out of the studios I've worked at. They use pretty much all the Adobe Suite programs that they have. So they'll use Photoshop for backgrounds. They'll use like Adobe Premiere for editing, like the audio mix and stuff. Then they'll use Adobe Animate for the animation, and they'll bring the Adobe Animate Swift into After Effects, and then they'll do the post stuff there, and that's kind of basically it. That's usually what I do. I've kind of been just using Adobe Animate for backgrounds lately. I used to have a background artist. Over the summer, my views were like ridiculous for some reason. I don't know. Sometimes the algorithm like is your best friend, and sometimes the algorithm hates you. So over the summer, the algorithm wanted to be like best friends with me. I don't know why. So I had enough money to afford a background artist, which was freaking amazing because I hate doing backgrounds. Backgrounds is not anything not story. Like technically backgrounds can be story related if you're thinking about it, but anything that's not like character development is boring for me. So I really hate backgrounds. So I kind of just
sorry, Charlie.
Sorry, Charlie. Are you a background artist?
Yeah, he's an environmental artist. Yeah.
No, can I say I love backgrounds. I don't like doing them, but I love watching people do them.
Well, he doesn't like doing characters, so you know.
Okay, there you go. It's funny because like when I worked at Titmouse, like when I had free time, I would literally just go into the background artists section and just watch them, and they would be like, "Lauren, don't you have something better to do?"
Get out of here. We're trying to work.
Like, stop hovering over me. I'm trying to like do my job, unlike you.
Can you talk super briefly about being on the production side? Because that's like, I know for a lot of folks, that's kind of the entry into the industry. And it doesn't really get talked about that much. Like production's so like kind of ignored half the time, but it's so important.
100%. You know, it totally should get talked about more because it is one of the biggest ways to get your foot in the door if you're, maybe your art skills aren't, totally ready for the studio yet. If you I'm not saying become a PA or a production assistant just to become an artist. Definitely don't do that. There's been people that have said during interviews, because as a production coordinator, we used to interview people for jobs and stuff. And they would say, I only want to be a PA because I want to be a background artist. I'm like, okay, next, we want someone that's going to be focused on your actual job and excited to do your actual job. But if you're somebody that just like loves and appreciates the whole process of making cartoons, and that's why you want to be a PA, and then eventually would like to work your way into art, that's cool. Like understanding that is fine. So it is a really good way to learn. I was one of those people actually that my goal was to eventually be an artist. So I became a PA because I was just loved the whole process so much. I wanted to learn every single aspect about making cartoons. And I ended up falling in love with production and not wanting to be an artist anymore.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I loved it. And the thing is, like, I still love production. It's like basically as a production assistant, I'm sure all studios are different with what responsibilities they give you. But at Titmouse, we have our animators and pretty much all of our artists in-house. So I know, like, at Nickelodeon and stuff, a lot of the animation is sent overseas and stuff to, you know, it's just the way it is. Titmouse, we actually have our animators in-house. So I would be basically overseeing every single animator, making sure that they're on track and stuff like that. And it was really fun to work closely with them. But other, like, tasks you'd be doing is, like, a lot of tedious stuff that, you know, you'd kind of just be assisting the director with little tasks that they need, going around to the artists and seeing if they need you to find them anything, you know, stuff like that. And then when you move into, like, the coordinator position, your eyes are kind of more on the production schedule itself and kind of making sure that things are on track and just preparing for things before they happen, seeing the weeks ahead. So it's just basically you're kind of doing everything except drawing and the art, which is still really, really fun. But my like goals, like my end goal is to be a show creator and a director too one day. And I feel like as being in production for 4 years, I wasn't getting to my end goal. I was kind of just stuck at, I kind of did what I needed to do. I learned how to make cartoons. I learned about budgets and, like, all of that stuff. And now I kind of, you know, jumped onto the YouTube world, because now I'm kind of, like, learning a whole new set of tasks by doing this. But yeah, I don't know. Is there any, like, thing specific I should talk about with production?
No, that was a great overview, I think, for folks who don't really know what happens in production. I think that was great.
And I do think also I wanted to add that, you know, for some reason people don't think that production is as sexy as being an artist or whatever, but you can kill the game in going the production route. You know, there's if you're passionate about making cartoons, you can go in the production way and then just exactly what you did. You learned how to do the process, and now you're killing the game.
I can't tell you how many people I know started out as a production assistant, or started out, like, I know when I was at Nickelodeon in 2012, there was a mailroom. There probably, I'm sure there's still a mailroom, but started out in the mailroom and are now storyboard artists. I mean, you can really, over the years, you can work your way up, because as a production person, you have access to the server and you have access to all of the storyboards. You have access to all of the background sketches, all of the, you know, you're in every meeting. I used to sit in meetings, take notes for the artists, take notes for the directors, and end up, you know, typing those notes, putting them on. You know, you're taking notes, you're learning. The best part about being in production for me was to be in those meetings and listen to the art directors give, you know, feedback live to the artists, because we would work on shows like LA shows, so we would Skype with LA, and then we would put the art, like, on the screen, and then the director would say out loud, like, you know, what his notes are, and I would have to type those notes. So I'm learning at the same time as these guys are learning. Just because I didn't make the original drawing doesn't mean I don't get the knowledge. So you can become a better artist as a PA, just by observing.
Right.
I have a question, because that is kind of contradictory to your previous point, as far as, like, being a production coordinator and interviewing PAs. And I'm interested in being a PA, but I also would like to be an artist. So do you have any advice on how to, like, answer that question correctly?
So how to lie to get the job you want?
You know, it's like, here's the thing. I just want to say a really funny story real quick. So in 2012, I was an intern at Nickelodeon. And during the internship, the coordinator met with me and like wanted to know my goals and my dreams. And I'm like, I want to be a show creator. I was, very, I didn't know anything about the industry yet. And I'm like, I want to be a show creator. I want to be a creator, right? So she's like, so what are your steps in your plan to get to that? She's like, I'm like, I'll probably just become a PA just to kind of get my foot in the door. Basically, I answered it very poorly. I think it's more about like, and they told me, Lauren, do not say that during an interview. Like, do not say that. They were mentoring me and teaching me and they kind of explained to me, like, there's a way to say that. Like, a lot of people become PAs to get into the art world, but there is a way to say it. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're lying. Like, I'm sure you're really interested in the whole process. And as, an artist, like, you can learn, like I said, you can learn so much being in production just by observing everybody else's stuff and sitting in those meetings. So I guess I would say something along the lines of, I'm just in love with the animation process. I want as much, knowledge as I possibly can from that. I think the best way to gain that knowledge is to start, be involved with the production pipeline as much as possible, observe the artist during meetings, take notes for the artist, and kind of just ramble off things that PAs do and say, like, I feel like I can, gain more knowledge in the industry by doing these things that PAs do, kind of along the lines of that. And I guess, like, you can absolutely say that you love to draw and stuff like that, but you would want to focus your answers on whatever you're being interviewed for. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Like, it makes sense. And, I think that's what most people probably would say is, like, focus on what they are asking applicants, what the actual job is, and just make sure that your focus is on that, as opposed to maybe where you want to be in a few years.
Yeah. It's tricky, though. Like, it's tricky because, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be an artist eventually, but as long as you're putting emphasis on wanting to learn the things that PAs do, like, more.
Yeah.